Today, we dive into Exodus 21 verses 2 through 6, a passage that has sparked considerable debate. This passage, nestled in the heart of the Old Testament, unfolds in a time when the Hebrews were forging their identity amidst a complex tapestry of cultures and traditions. Imagine, if you will, the arid landscapes of the Middle East, where the concept of Hebrew servitude was born. This was not slavery as we understand it today, but a system of indentured servitude. A Hebrew could become a servant for a variety of reasons, often to repay a debt. Exodus 21 introduces the 6-year rule. A Hebrew servant would serve for 6 years, and in the 7th he would go free. But as we'll see, this freedom was not without its complexities, particularly when a wife and children entered the equation. With this foundation, we can now delve deeper into the verses and their implications. First, we look at Exodus 21 verse 2. It sets the stage for Hebrew servitude, stating that after 6 years, a servant may leave freely. But what does freedom really mean in this context? As we move on to Exodus 21 verse 3, we find a catch in the promise of freedom. If the servant enters servitude alone, he leaves alone. But if his master gives him a wife and they have children, the wife and children belong to the master. Here we witness the stark reality of the era. Women and children are considered property, not individuals with rights or freedom. This brings us to the heart-wrenching dilemma faced by the servant in Exodus 21 verse 4. If he chooses to leave, he must abandon his wife and children. His freedom comes at the cost of his family. Exodus 21 verse 5 presents an alternative. The servant can choose to stay with his family, but this decision comes with its own sacrifice. He must renounce his hard-earned freedom, becoming a servant for life. Here we see the concept of freedom twisted into a tool of manipulation, binding the servant to a lifetime of servitude under the guise of love and family. Lastly, Exodus 21 verse 6 seals the servant's fate. If he decides to stay, his master takes him to the doorpost, pierces his ear with an awl, marking him as a servant forever. A physical and symbolic act, etching the sacrifice of his freedom into his very flesh. Here we see the servant facing a heartbreaking decision, a choice between freedom and family. This narrative, woven through the verses of Exodus 21 verses 2 through 6, brings to light the harrowing implications of freedom, family, and servitude in the biblical era. Now that we have dissected the verses, it's time to reflect. Imagine yourself in the shoes of this Hebrew servant, torn between the chains of servitude and the bonds of family. What would you choose? Freedom at the cost of leaving your loved ones behind? Or servitude to ensure the togetherness of your family? This dilemma sheds light on a stark reality of ancient societal norms. The verses paint a picture where women and children are seen as mere property, a possession that can be given or taken away. A society where a man's freedom can cost him his family. As we delve deeper into the moral implications of this predicament, we see a stark contrast with our modern understanding of human rights, freedom, and family values. It's a poignant reminder of how far we've come, and yet how these age-old dilemmas continue to find relevance today. As we grapple with these concepts, we realize the complexity and depth of these ancient texts. In conclusion, Exodus 21 verses 2 through 6 presents us with a complex situation that challenges our understanding of freedom, family, and societal norms. We've dissected these verses, unraveled their meanings, and delved deep into the moral dilemma faced by the Hebrew servant. A man's freedom once lost was returned after 6 years, but at a high price. The family he formed during his servitude, a wife given by his master and children born of them, were not his to claim unless he renounced his newfound liberty. These verses, while perplexing to modern sensibilities, mirror the societal norms of the time, where women and children were often viewed as property. They serve as a stark reminder of a past where human rights were not universally recognized or respected. As we continue to explore these ancient texts, we are left with more questions than answers, pushing us to dig deeper into our understanding of history and humanity. What does this imply about a God that is the sole arbiter of what is good and evil? Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring,